I'm Angela Stalkup, and this is my presentation, Bifurcated Business, Navigating Feminisms in a Women's Business Organization. To set the tone for this presentation, I've framed it as though I am addressing the woman CEO of an organization that is entirely female staffed and that serves a female population. This is based on a real incident, a real case study. I've changed some of the details and I'm not using the names of anyone involved. However, this is based on things that are really happening and is particularly meant to see how we might apply feminist theory and specifically Dorothy Smith and her 5 elements of how gender can be explored through communication in organizations as an analysis of a communication crisis and then as an opportunity for strategy. So from henceforth, I am speaking as though I am speaking to Ms. CEO, the CEO of the company. So I've put together this presentation to address this current conflict that's going on. We're going to be looking specifically at this idea of the discord that's going on between you and then this most valuable stakeholder group, your community leaders. These people are the representatives. They're the face of your brand. They're the evangelist out really recruiting for your organization. I want to help you to find an approach to address this specific incident that happened, but I think this is going to help to create better experience of communication throughout the organization. And I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach by using this idea of asking the question, what does the woman in woman-owned business mean? And posing this as an opportunity for framing internal discussion. And particularly I want to use the lens of feminist theory and the work of a specific theorist, Dorothy Smith. And she's put together 5 areas that we can look at to see the role that gender plays in organizations and communication, particularly looking at gender systems, identity, power, injustice, and change. You may not make sense now, but this is going to provide us with a framework for analysis of the incident and then also a strategy not only to address the specific crisis that has been occurring, but to actually improve communication throughout the organization and to reduce communication conflicts internally. But just as a quick reminder of what we're talking about, as the incident, a group of community leaders approached you feeling that they were unheard, and this has been an ongoing issue of conflict of the way you want to communicate with them versus the way they want to be communicated with. You became very frustrated and said, this isn't a sorority, it's a business. Stop whining and act like real business owners. Well, a certain segment of your leaders became very angry and felt that they were being attacked for actually using the approach that is the mission of the business, which is the feminine approach to business. And they feel it's reflective of a communication pattern that's out of alignment with the core mission of the business. That they're out promoting a female approach, saying that there's nothing wrong with that, but that they were being attacked for not using a male approach within the business that they work for. And just want to add of why this is relevant. This is indicative of the ongoing debate in the industry in general. I mean, we both know that there's a lot of contention. There's a lot of strong words being said right now about what does it even mean to, what does a women-owned business need? So before we get into the specifics of how Smith and her theory is going to help us to analyze and strategize on your communication challenge, I think it's interesting to set the framework of feminism, and you'll see here feminisms. Now I know this is a concept that you don't have a problem with. There may be some in your organization that don't like the word, and there are many women who say that they're not feminist. However, if you look at this chart, that is one example of a breakdown of feminisms. You'll see that there are 6 different columns there: liberal, radical, socialist, postmodernist, multicultural, postcolonial, that I would imagine that most women, and in fact most men, could find some parts of these that they agree with. So while the term feminism may be a little controversial, the concepts here are pretty much universally accepted. And if you look particularly at this second line, women's identities, you'll see that even within this idea of feminism, even the concept of identity is different. Liberal feminism, a woman is equal to a man. Radical feminism, women have experiences that are different from men. They're valuable, but they're different. Postmodernism, that the word woman is based on structures for men and women. multicultural feminism, that gender and race are combined, and so you can't look at gender without race. And then post-colonial, about third world versus first world. So even within this idea of feminism, there is not 100% agreement on what feminism is. And so this really reflects on what happened in the communication and what's been going on in the organization. The organization says they have a feminine approach to business, that's sort of radical feminism. The leaders, for the most part, at least the ones that have complained, agree with that position. That's the position they take. You, however, feel that in business communication, female and male communication are the same, that there's really not a difference. It would be more of a liberal feminist point of view. So already we got some friction. Then among your other leaders, among your community, there's diverse possibilities of what the position may even be on the actual idea of what a woman is. So multicultural, class, you are at any given time going to be dealing with one or many feminisms. And so I think this is why it's significant to look at how Smith and her feminist theory can really help in an organization of women, by women, for women. Because just because we're women, and just because all the members are women, does not mean there's going to be a universal position on what woman means or what woman-owned business means. So we're going to go through these 5 elements to analyze the specific incident that we talked about with, this isn't a sorority incident, looking at gender systems, identity, power relations, social injustice, and change. So just giving you a little background on each one of these as we go through. The idea of gender systems, Smith suggests that is more than just the male-female binary, but it's about power and circles of power. So in the incident that we're discussing, the community leaders felt, because there was actually this sort of difference in the way gender was viewed, that they were being excluded from the circle of power in the organization, which clearly is centered on you. Their feeling unheard makes them feel excluded. Smith talks about women's identity as being one of bifurcated consciousness, a divided consciousness, that women have a mother tongue, but that society in general speaks the father tongue, and that the father tongue is favored, and that for women to use the mother tongue, they have to slip away sideways, is her expression. And so your leaders who were upset by this communication, they've chosen to be part of the organization and to promote this philosophy because they don't want to speak the male language of business. They don't want to have to slip into the mother tongue. So this threatens them in their career identity and their personal identity. Next, Smith talks about power relations, specifically relations of ruling, saying that social structures themselves are based on patriarchy. So in the organization, these women that are upset, they don't want to recreate the male structure of business. This is why they found it to be upsetting to be told that a sorority or a sisterhood is not acceptable. Then social injustice, there's an idea called the circle of men, that really it's the power resides with men. Women can contribute to it. Women can even be part of it, but they don't really get to change it. And so the women in the organization, they've chosen to be in this organization to participate in business outside the circle of men. And then finally, when it comes to the concept of change, Smith says we have to challenge any of given assumptions. We have to look to the lived lives of women. So your leaders are looking at examples of women running businesses in non-traditional ways. Being told that they're not approaching this as a real business really makes them feel that their lived experience is being denied. So what can we use for strategies related to this analysis? Well, I've got 3 overarching strategies, and I'm going to touch on then each of those 5 points related to these strategies, related to examining organizational communication, encouraging internal dialogue on these competing philosophies, and then promoting channels for listening. So I've combined some of these together because I think that there's some overlap. So looking at first gender and identity, understanding that there's not going to be any universal idea of womanhood. Whenever you're framing communication, there need to be systems to check them for cultural, race, ethnicity, class, power, sexual orientation. These are all things that could also be going on under the heading of a women's organization. And then recognizing with identity that your internal communication does need to be aligned with your company mission, and there needs to be allowance that the father tongue is not the only language for business internally. Then when we look at power relations and social injustice, I think you might want to consider some non-traditional communication structures. I know you prefer kind of a top-down method, but really a two-way method. You may need to designate a liaison. Is going to really improve this for your members. And then separating benchmarks from any one specific business approach, meaning not that you're not going to have benchmarks, but understanding that there does not have to be done in a certain specific male business way. And then with the circle of men, looking at ways to frame success outside of that circle, highlighting and promoting stories within the organization as well as without of success outside that circle. And then finally, for change, Smith suggests institutional ethnography. I'm going to suggest you use autoethnography, where you invite people to share their own stories. Invite your leaders to share their business stories. Use your communities. Invite feedback from your leaders. Create listening channels and designated times for them to share their stories. It's going to go a long way toward that feeling of being heard. So what are we going to do to get to a little bit more peace in the organization? Well, remember, the goal is understanding. It does not have to be agreement. Your leaders don't have to agree with every decision, but they do need to feel heard. There needs to be a sense of consensus. And if you own the conversation by being proactive in addressing this concept of what does it mean to be a woman in an organization, recognizing that this is an ongoing and fluid and changing dynamic, you're going to be able to be proactive in getting ahead of potential upsets. And I would suggest that we start by creating a communication playbook for you, for your leaders, for your staff, that's going to help to be aware of all these different feminisms. What is the value to your company? Improved internal communication, reducing the contentiousness in team members and team meetings, and then getting ahead of a trend. There's going to be more and more about these sensitivities, not just of gender, but for people. And this is an opportunity to position the company as a thought leader on the fluidity of the concept of women-owned business. And this is going to be something then that will pass beyond just the world of women. Dorothy Smith talks about people. This is going to be about people and how people interact. And so when it comes to any strategic communication moving forward in the future, we are not going to be able to ignore the issues of gender, culture, race, even in an organization that is entirely single cultured. So to conclude, giving credit where credit is due, the references are from a book called Public Relations and Social Theory. Here's the information. And the photo credits, unless noted, are from freedigitalphotos.net. So thank you for your time. I look forward to working with you.